Hey, welcome back to the show. This is Cavallo from datingadviceguru.com. Today we're going to hit on one of those hot love myths. That's right, we're going to answer the question, is love at first sight real? And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you don't know about men. And of course, do the big three you got to do. Make sure you, number one, like and subscribe to the videos. You want to keep getting them, right? Turn on notifications, that little bell or whatever icon they're using, to make sure you know about the next video. And of course, leave me your questions and your comments below. Now, have you ever asked yourself, is love at first sight real? Is it even possible? Well, you'd be right to ask that because it's one of the most romantic questions of all time, and I intend to answer it for you right here in this video. But for some people, the very phrase love at first sight makes their eyes glaze over or roll like, yeah, right. For others, it's one of the most supremely romantic ideas that you could just lock eyes with somebody and fall in love. One of the things they hope and pray actually happens to them. So which one are you? Well, the question of love at first sight really boils down to this. Can two people meet and in just a few minutes discover that they were meant to be together? I want to start out by explaining a very big and important part of this question up front, and that is that even if love at first sight is real, that doesn't mean that the person you meet is the only person for you. It doesn't have to be love at first sight to mean that this relationship won't be fantastic or beautiful, a great romance. There are plenty of great relationships out there that did not start out with a, wow, I fell in love right away kind of start. In fact, if you're waiting for that kind of significant fireworks show to tell you that you found the one, you're setting yourself up for failure. Your Prince Charming could be wearing denim overalls, and you're going to miss him while you're out there wishing on a star. Well, let's dive into this topic in detail because there's more here than meets the eye. Literally. So is love at first sight real? In order to answer that question, we start out, and we first have to look at this recent study from the Netherlands. Yes, I'm actually going to quote from Zosk, Hauk, DeWitt, and Barelds, whoever the hell they were. These researchers asked nearly 400 men and women to complete surveys about potential romantic partners immediately after they first encountered those people. Now, they were asked how much they would agree with this statement. I'm experiencing love at first sight with this person. They were also instructed to report how attracted they felt, as well as their level of passionate interest. They did this online, as well as using pictures, and then finally in person. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that 400 people is not a very large sample to base a study on, but, you know, it's love at first sight, so we're going to do what we're going to do. You don't need to be a scientist to realize that that's probably not enough people. After all, what is the chance that your soulmate is going to be hiding out in a group of 200 research subjects? 200 men and 200 women in the study, right? Well, what they did actually find out about this myth of love at first sight between men and women is fact. Men are more likely to claim love at first sight than women are. Now, this one might sound incredible, but it's true. Men typically fall in love faster and harder than women do. A woman will then go along with the story later on, if it works out. The stereotype, after all, points to women being the ones to blurt out, I love you, first, and then, of course, desperately asking the guy, where's this going? What are we? When are you going to commit? That's the stereotype. The reason for this is in how women evolved over thousands of years. She had to be cautious about who she decided to fall for. He had to be reliable, and he couldn't disappear if she got pregnant. The male, on the other hand, was the hunter, and he had to bag his prey quickly. Some might even say that guys are just lying about this to get a woman in bed, right? But the truth is that the men actually believe that their emotions are true, that they fell in love at first sight. In my book, that means they are true. Okay, now for the next discovery about love at first sight. Fact. Love at first sight isn't always reverse engineered. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it's easy for two people to meet, fall in love later, and then decide to tell all their friends that, oh, it was love at first sight, right? You can make up any story you like. The guy starts telling his friends that he knew he was going to marry her the second he saw her. Yeah, that's exactly what a lot of guys actually say, by the way. I've got plenty of examples of that. And if you doubt it, go back and watch that part about men falling in love quicker than women. I personally have had at least 3 of my guy friends tell me this exact same thing, that he knew she was the one the second he laid eyes on her. So how is that even possible? Well, keep watching here. Fact, love at first sight happens with more attractive people. This one is probably a duh when you hear it, but if you're more attractive, it's more likely that you're going to feel that you fell in love with somebody on the spot, right? In fact, a person is if they're only 1 point higher on that classic 1 to 10 scale of hotness, then it's actually 9 times more likely the other person is going to fall in love with them at first sight. But it's not guaranteed. Attractiveness is part of a combination. It's a complete recipe of love that men respond to. I'm going to talk more about that in a second. Fact, love at first sight isn't a two-way street. Love at first sight is rarely experienced by both people at the exact same time. When a guy sees a woman as his future wife, she usually just sees some dude that she'd like to meet and maybe talk to. In fact, it's often the case that she just goes, not that interested. After all, he hasn't presented her with much of a challenge either. After all, he's already just started chasing her. Now, in many of these cases, it's only the man's gut feel and willingness to pursue her that makes the relationship grow into a romance and then love. The fact is that shared instant love just isn't very likely. And again, it's sometimes the case that the interested person's feelings are strong enough to reshape and resculpt the other person's recollection of how they got together. So she kind of changes her memories based on how strongly he was into her. So they basically just go along with a romantic story. Fact, it's your past that makes your future. We often ignore the small things that play a big part of where our lives go. Our destinies are not only intertwined, but they're also pointed by the winds of the past. In other words, we often think that something happening to us in the moment is just that. It's happening right now. But what got you to this moment? What brought you to the place where you actually met this person? The fact is that we are all influenced by past relationships, friends, family, relatives, and so much more. So the occurrence of love at first sight is often a combination of a whole bunch of different factors. We might want to attribute some magic to that moment, but most of it really is a function of our past conditioning and our experiences. So while fate and happenstance may have put you near that person, you also come close to a whole bunch of people every single day that you didn't fall in love with, right? The difference with this instance would be that you happen to be primed to find this person attractive already, and they just happen to fall into your life at the right time. Kind of a perfect storm situation. Fact, you have many possible soulmates. It's interesting, but many people call the person that they've fallen for their soulmate. Sometimes they describe this person as the one for them. But the one is really, well, it's not really the truth when it comes to relationships. We have many people we can fall in love with and even have a lifelong affair with. We only call this person the one because they're the one in this moment that we happen to be with. They're also the one we are currently most emotionally addicted to. But there are many possible partners for every person on this planet. Many people we are not only compatible with, but attracted to. It's easy to attribute magical aspects to our romantic lives, but the truth is that it's always a combination of chance, circumstance, and readiness. As the saying goes, when we're ready, they will appear to us. Fact, it's part of your subconscious programming. Here's another of the not-so-romantic notions about love at first sight. It's been proven that we respond to certain templates of facial attraction. For women, it's a man who has these traits. He looks like people you felt attracted to before, as we mentioned earlier. He has facial traits that are similar to your parents. After all, they formed most of your templates of the world. He has, well, occasionally an angry expression. Yes, it's true. Women find men with serious and almost angry expressions more attractive. He has a higher facial width to height ratio. If a man has a slightly wider face, this is actually seen as more dominant. He has subtle facial hair. Just a shadow is enough, not the whole hipster beard thing. Okay, guys? More pronounced chin. All these traits are programmed into you in the same way that a woman with bigger hips and bigger boobs is going to trigger a man's instinctive desires. The fact is that love at first sight doesn't only trigger because of looks, though. It's more when the person triggers a felt sense of connection. I'm going to come back to that one in a minute, too. Fact, it's often about what you lack. In reality, we feel much more attraction for a person that we perceive has something that we lack or something we need. I'll give you an example here. I went through a phase of dating where the women that I desired were very, very feminine. I wanted the girliest of girls, the most caring, loving women I could find. Eventually, I realized that I was trying to make up for nurturing that I had not received as a kid. And of course, I learned that I needed a balance of nurturing and independence from my partners. Later on, I figured that out, but we can all get caught up in this mad cycle of pursuing our deepest needs and then not even realize that that's what's driving us towards a certain kind of partner, whether that's healthy or not. Instead, we attribute it to crazy love or infatuation or even love at first sight. The best thing you can do is to take a good look at your own history and know, why do you usually chase a certain kind of guy or chase a certain kind of relationship? Fact, blame it on spontaneity and seduction. Another fact of life is that we like the idea of being swept away by love. Women aren't the only ones about this either, okay? Men also like the idea of finding their love and winning her like a prince in a fairy tale, just as much as women want to be that princess. You're going to find a lot in common with them, which is itself kind of a trick of the mind, mostly because, let's face it, you really want to want this guy, don't you? You're going to find a whole bunch of things about them to like. You know, you've got common interests like music, food, movies. We're so alike. You'll have weird coincidences between you, like knowing someone in common or going to the same school or some weird stuff like that. You'll both make excuses to get physical pretty quickly. Touching hands, kissing, jumping in the sack. You're going to have no problem connecting with him later on. You're not going to have any of that usual ghosting issue or him texting back 4 days later that you might normally experience, which feels different, so you attribute it to love at first sight. In short, you're going to be predisposed to want this guy. And even willingly, you're going to let yourself be seduced by him. So watch out for that. Fact, it's not really love. Here's where we're going to really, well, I'm probably going to raise some hackles here, but I'm also going to tell you, we're going to really explore a little bit to understand what's happening at the ground floor of love at first sight. Most people call lust love, simply because it feels so compelling and strong, doesn't it? But that's not love. It is. It's just lust. It's that initial hit of dopamine hormones you get. And, you know, it's addictive for good reason. In numerous studies of the hormonal effect of love in the brain, they find that the cocktail of chemicals that our body releases when we're in lust are as strong as crack cocaine, one of the most addictive drugs there is. And long-term love, the kind of love that we always mellow into, is more like heroin in the bloodstream. You like my drug references here? Heroin's more mellow, it's more addictive, and subtly more powerful. Not that I've ever taken it. And you may not notice when you're in that kind of love because it doesn't feel as highly charged. But you're going to notice when you've been cut off from your supply. I guarantee you, that's what long-term love is like. A few of the qualities of long-term love are intimacy, really knowing a person at a deep level, commitment, the devotion to your partner, respect, acceptance, trust, forgiveness, compromise. The fact is that love, the enduring and deep kind, capital L love, is simply not present in the first few weeks of knowing somebody. If you look at that list that I just gave you there, you're going to agree that those qualities are not created in a moment of magical eye contact. But here's another question that might emphasize the difference. Have you ever felt that electric charge of love at first sight, but then it fizzled out or didn't go anywhere? Well, a lot of the situations that we have like that, we simply forgot about. We felt a huge charge, but the attraction didn't last, or they were totally not into us. It's only the times that we manage to meet that person and start some kind of relationship that we label it as love at first sight. What love at first sight actually appears to be, based on both science and experience, is simply a lightning bolt of attraction that opens up for the possibility, just the possibility of a relationship. And when there's no possibility, we forget that it happened. Well, most of the time. You see, love at first sight must evolve or it will die. It's like the seed of the plant of your relationship. It only goes in one of two directions. The relationship can wither away because neither person really knew how to make it blossom into real romantic love, or the woman knows how to make a soulmate connection with him, and it does go that way. It's up to you. As a woman, you've got to be able to create the relationship you want, the one that stands the test of time. Guys simply don't get how to take it from that initial attraction into the full-blown romance. Most women don't understand men well enough to make sure that she doesn't lose the man she's got, the man she wants. And very often she will lose him to another woman because she doesn't get his connection code. Now, if you'd like to know more about how to make a man connect with you and only you got to know what your man's connection code is. See that little link below me there? That's right. Go on over to it, datingadviceguru.com/connection. Each and every guy that you meet has a connection code that is specific to his type, and you got to know what it is. Hey, this is Cavallo from datingadviceguru.com. Make sure you do that big 3 as we sign off here. Make sure you like and subscribe to these videos. Turn on notifications so you know when the next one comes out. And of course, leave me your questions and comments below so I can decide what my next topic is going to be. And as always, live and love with passion.